Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, it's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 212 of the new series of the Cognitive Podcast. And I'm calling this one Details because I feel like I've been drowning in them this week. Yes, kids, I am 10 days of seeing patients away from my Christmas week off, hanging on by the skin of my teeth. I don't know why I say this. I had a week off in September, but I think it was because I didn't have any time off between January 1st and mid-September, and I just burned myself out a bit. At any rate, your comments are very welcome. Please feel free to comment on our blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com or on our group on Ravelry. And I guess I should say the usual introductory stuff. Please be aware I'm not adding you to any of my follower groups on social media because robo accounts are haunting me. So you can follow me through the group on Ravelry or the blog in the show notes. And I'm glad to have you there, believe me. Meanwhile, in the Warm Thanks department, warm thanks to our own Sal Pal for her very supportive comments around the story I mentioned in the last episode about the woman who was running on the University of Georgia campus and was very cruelly murdered. Yeah, I have to say I appreciate your comments, Sal Pal. When I look back over 50 years of running, 54 to be precise, give or take time off, whatever, I can't figure out whether I'm horrified at how many times I've been attacked or amazed that I've been so unharmed despite all the attacks. I have to say, I don't think there's anything she could have done. I want to make that clear that even if she'd had bear spray or a GoPro camera, you know, it's ridiculous to think when a woman goes out to run that she's got to arm herself. Like she's got to have a weapon she can fire. She's got to have a camera to record her movements. She has to be plugged into 911. It really is strange. I love it when I see these ads for running clothes and they talk about what a man needs to go running. They don't talk about that. They say, here's your basic running equipment. And it's all the stuff that a guy needs, you know, maybe some gel to keep their nipples from chafing, a rather male problem, or just basically here's a comfortable running belt, or here's some good socks. When a woman goes out running, here's your bear spray, here's your personal alarm. Don't forget to have 911 on speed dial on your phone. A GoPro is good. You know, it is really disturbing. And so, you know, I have to say, too, this week what struck me is we have the insurance mafioso who got killed in a hotel in Manhattan, and we're hearing all about the hue and cry to capture his killer. And at the same time, I think, okay, but that's a guy who's taken human lives. I mean, his hands are covered in blood. He supports a company that kills people. And here's this poor young woman running on a university campus. Are we hearing anything about that? No, not really. Why does he get national news and she doesn't? It just goes to show you we're just so heartless about the attacks on everyday people. And we're heartless on the attacks on women just trying to live normal lives. I'm not going to dwell on that as a former insurance professional. Let's just say it's very interesting to me. And I'd like to, at this moment, acknowledge my father because today is December 8th, and yesterday was Pearl Harbor Day, and Dad was a Pearl Harbor survivor. And I want to acknowledge that, and I also want to thank him for telling me when I was running the Massey companies back in the 80s, the great thing he said to me was, get out of health insurance, you'll hate yourself. You can't make decisions for medical doctors, yet they'll try to force you to. Oh, Dad, thank you. No truer words were ever spoken. In the meantime, what's on my hooks and needles? Well, I did finish the Yule socks in the beautiful yarn from the Netwake Studios. And they almost came out. You can see that my gauge is off. I don't care. They're beautiful. They look lovely. And I'm enjoying wearing them. And they're Christmas colors and they're making me happy. I started to get more gauge-like as time went on, but I just missed the gauge and I don't care much. I was happy to make them. In the meantime, since we're on that Christmas theme, I've been working my way through the Woobles Advent Calendar from 2023. And by working my way, I mean skipping the little projects and doing all the big ones. There were 4 large figures, as I recall. Well, there was a Christmas tree that was broken down into 3 pieces plus a star. So that's actually 4 of the small ones put together. They later reissued that tree with the star on top as a kit in one big piece. So I did that. And then I did the elf. And then I did the gingerbread man, you may remember last episode. And they all lead you up in a really good process to making Santa. And I had been intimidated by Santa, and I'm so glad I did those other kits because basically Santa's body is the elf's body in red, but you get to practice on Santa's belt with the elf's belt, and you get to practice on Santa's hat and the pom-pom with the elf's hat, and you get to practice on Santa's mustache with the gingerbread man's tie. So by the time you get to Santa, the only thing that's really new is the beard. It's a little strange, but it works. You just have to be very literal when you follow the instructions. You can see Santa there. He's also at the top of the show notes with the Mrs. Santa I made several months ago. They're really supposed to go on my Christmas tree, but frankly, I can't even find them because they just keep running away and hiding and snogging. So they're making out under the Christmas tree in the living room right now in the dark, I'm sure. But hopefully they will get onto my Christmas tree. I had a blast making Santa, and I do recommend him. Santa is practice in just follow the directions literally. Do not say, oh, I think she means... No, don't do that. Just do exactly what the directions say, no matter how weird they sound. The beard especially. Meanwhile, in progress, well, the stash toss. That was interesting because I had to add 6 in, which annoys me. Now, I wanted to order some yarn from Knit Picks, and I have no big grudge against Knit Picks. But I was disturbed because I ordered it, and then I realized, oh, I could have saved $7 on the shipping cost because they had a code right at the top of the page, and I missed it. So I thought, that's okay. What will happen is I will order again, and this time I will use the code, and then I will cancel the first order as soon as they send me notification that the order happened. They never sent the notification. I was ordering over Thanksgiving weekend, no notification. As a result, I ended up with 6 skeins of yarn when I really just wanted 2, arguably 4. What can I tell you? Knit Picks has always been rather uneven in my experience in customer service. Sometimes they're really on it, sometimes they're not. I was complaining about this to my husband, who just shrugged and said, it's yarn. You're going to use it. And I thought, yes, I am, because I am the queen of using scrap yarn. But also, I think this will go very well. I'm thinking about mittens, and I certainly have a use for it. All of the skeins are an Aran weight. 4 are in a beautiful hand-painted blue-green called Untamed that was on sale for $10 a skein. And then the others are City Tweed. There's 2 of those that I thought were very masculine looking for some kind of knit outerwear. Meanwhile, now that I've finished the beautiful Nanette Wake Studios Yarns Christmas socks, I said, well, I should pull out another skein and get ready to go. And then I said, no, I shouldn't. I should finish working on these socks from Steffi Jo. So tonight I pulled them out and I realized I had already taken one set of circulars that are 1.5s, and I had threaded them through the stitches for one side, assuming I divide this in the middle. I cut it apart. I'm steeking it. Okay, I had taken a needle and a contrast color yarn, and I ran the needle through the circle, around the ring in the same row of stitches, and I did it right in the middle, and that's where the sock tube will be divided for the 2 socks. And then I skipped 2 rows of stitches and did it again. And then I took one of my favorite sock yarn circulars, good old Chow Goose, And I carefully threaded it using that contrast yarn as a guide. I threaded it through the stitches. This worked really well. Now you could say, hey, Gemma, you didn't have to do that. You could have just started with the needles. You didn't have to run a contrast color thread through. Yeah, wait till you're 64. Wait, your vision. You'll get it. You'll get it. Just believe me. Okay. So anyway, I took my second needle now that I got it out of the socks that I was making and finished, and I ran it through the other place where I would want to have the stitches picked up. And now what I have is, you imagine the tube, and there's the middle, like a line in the middle, and then on either side of it I have a knitting needle that I've run through the stitches. So if I cut that middle line, I'm going to hopefully have 2 half tubes, and they will already be on the needle as active stitches. I'll have to pull out some of the, the cut thread and all that, but that should work very nicely. Did I drop any stitches? Wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't I like to know? We'll find out, but I'm not worried about it because the rest of the stitches are on there so tightly. I did not actually cut the tube tonight because I want to be in daylight. If anything goes wrong, if I just accidentally cut in the wrong direction or something, I want to make sure I can see what I'm doing. But I'm working on that. I realize, yes. Also, those things are so beautiful. I thought they may end up as fingerless mitts, that I may just treat that as the arms of fingerless mitts and use the Regia to make the glove part. And oh my God, they'll be so amazing if I do that. If I really have courage, I could go in and I could steek a thumb hole. Ooh, wait a minute. And just have the whole mitt there. Ooh, this is a thought. And just basically steek in the thumb hole. And then, take the Regia and do the fingertip, like a ridge around the fingertips to end it off, and a ridge around the bottom to end it off, and then just do the thumb. Ooh, the possibilities. Let's see how that goes. Let's see how much courage Gemma has. Meanwhile, once I'm rid of the socks, of course, I have to have some kind of mindless stitchery, and I do. I realize it's time to get back to work on the 10 square bag. The 10 square bag, people kept saying that looks very flimsy, yada, yada, yada. No, it doesn't. Once you start doing the sides in a single crochet, now I'm using a size 3 yarn at DK weight, and yet I'm using a big hook. I'm using an eye hook, and it's working out really well. And it's a nice tight side panel. Taking forever, of course, but that's okay. But once you get that side panel on there, when you can see it building up, and I'm about 1/3 of the way up one side, and that's all. But once you get that on there, and the bag begins to shape, you actually realize this is a pretty good bag. It's pretty tough. It's an acrylic yarn. Just because it's softened, it's an acrylic yarn. So I already have a liner. I learned this trick from our own Loretta, who basically has been using all those bags you pick up at various events. They give you the little cheap cloth bags to put all your tchotchkes in from the event. And I've got a few of those from previous cognitives, I might mention, previous CFRs. But you use those, and you can just deconstruct them a little bit and re-sew them, or sew them in and attach them. And you already have a pretty ready-made liner. So this is pretty exciting. Meanwhile, I am still working on my scrap quilt squares, my log cabins, and I'm just using a basic light versus dark. I've had a little unevenness, that I've had some colors that I thought were light that are actually figuring more in the dark range, but I'm working with all of that, and I now have, 19 finished. I finished 8 more squares this week. These are big squares. They're coming out at about 10 inches, which is great. So I'm thinking about 100 of these guys. And basically every day I just do 8 or 9 of them. I take a pile of them and I do one seam on a whole pile of them. So when I finished the last bunch, for example, I, on Saturday, took my strips of quilt that I'm using for the centers. It's the flannel with light colored hearts on it. And I cut those into 2.5 inch squares. And then on today, I took the dark stripe, because I started with a dark stripe, and laid it across the square. and pinned it and then cut off the excess. And so I did that, and then tomorrow I will take the 9 squares that I had as centers and I will stitch on that first dark stripe and iron it flat and probably pin on the next dark stripe. And so every day I add a stripe to each square. So basically I've got, I think, 8 stripes around, so it takes 8 days. So I've got a set of 9 right now. And so in 8 days, I should have 9 more squares done just by doing 1 stripe a day, if that makes any sense. The weirdest thing is the colors. Someone pointed out to me, well, these are all the colors you've made clothing out of. So these are all the colors you like. Yeah, but it's weird to see them contrasted this way, the light against the dark. And it's weird because really the high contrast makes the pinwheels stand out when you do a block of 4 squares together. And then the darks become like this stair step next to them. And it just doesn't look like any color. It looks like black and white. It's a very strange experience. I posted on Blue Sky a picture of the first 11 squares laid out together. And another quilter got on and said, that's amazing. The blacks really stand out. And I thought, the irony is there is no black. That's what you get when you have the strong contrast. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. So I'm hoping now that I've got 19 squares, and in another 8 days, that'll be at 28 squares. You can hear this thing can grow pretty quickly. And I am looking forward to having a huge batch of them and being able to lay them out. Some of you may remember that I did this with my remnants quilt that I made from my crocheted squares, where I was crocheting 1 square every day. And laying it out and playing with patterns is just such a blast. And certainly that's what you get from quilting. And don't hold your breath. I'm a very traditional quilter. I've really made very few quilts in my time. I think I've made 13 or 14 of them. And they've been all sizes, from little wall hangings to pillows to twin beds. And this one is aiming for a queen bed quilt. I'd really like this to be for our master bedroom. And I'm just enjoying it so much. If you're going to quilt, just like if you're going to knit sweaters or whatever, you have to learn to enjoy the process. You have to learn to be able to say, look at this beautiful square. That's so amazing. You can't wait to be excited when you assemble all the squares into the pattern for the quilt top. If you wait that long, you'll never finish. You have to sort of love it every step of the way. For example, if you're doing a Fair Isle sweater, you have to be able to look at the collar and say, look at that beautiful collar. Look at the way the texture changes when I get down to the Fair Isle patterning below the actual raised collar at the neckline. Oh, look, you can see the patterns coming together. It's making little pictures. And then you say, oh, look, after you finish that, oh, look at how the solid is contrasting to make those Fair Isle patterns stand out. I mean, you have to be able to do that to quilt as well. You have to really enjoy it at every step of the way and play with it. But I'm playing with it and having fun. Oh, nothing going on Disney Blondes. I'm hoping to change that over the Christmas break. Sure you are, Gemma. Well, you're hoping to do a million things, Gemma. I don't think any experienced listener is particularly surprised to hear me say that I'm making the list of things I want to do over the Christmas break already on my to-do list. And I'm really grateful to be doing it. I have to say I got a lot more interesting things done over Thanksgiving than I had expected. And so I'm really looking forward to Christmas. I think the only really big thing, I want to finish the vestuary, of course. I want to do that at Thanksgiving, but we never got there. And I think I want to start a new Fair Isle pattern. And I think I want to do more quilt blocks, and I want to get the candles done. So we have 10 days. We'll see how that goes. 11 if you count New Year's Day. Meanwhile, let's see what else we're doing here. Oh, a strategy. Well, late breaking thing is the Fair Hearing trial. I just saw this on Instagram, and this is in reaction to the killing of that insurance CEO. Someone said, look, we can't just shoot them all. Yeah, I'm laughing because, no, I don't want to be that person. I do think these are very evil people, I have to be honest. But I don't want to promote violence. I'm not going to say we need to do this. But her point is that's not really helping the guy in the street victim of the insurance companies. And she said, what you need to know about is the Fair Hearing trial. So if you are refused any sort of health coverage or services, In other words, this includes government services as well. I say this as a Californian because we have a lot of these, and this applies as well. You're going to get a comment from the provider of coverage that says, if you'd like to appeal this, here's your date. Now, this woman's a lawyer, and she's saying, don't bother. They turned you down. They're perfectly solid with why they turned you down. Why would they care if you appeal it? She says, instead, you tell them, I want to go to a fair hearing trial. And then she says, if you don't know what this is, Google it for your state. So Google fair hearing trial in California if you're me. And you can see in the show notes, I actually have a tiny link. It says in California. And if you click on that, it'll take you to the search page I got. Because to be honest, California is terrific on this. I found fair trial information for all sorts of social services, DHSS, IHSS, the regional center. I could not believe how many things had this. I found all sorts of guides. Here's how you advocate for yourself. I was so impressed. Now, the lawyer who posted this on Instagram said, you have to remember that when you get in front of a judge, the judge does not like companies. He likes individuals because he's one or she's one. And it makes me so happy to say that. Let me tell you, that hasn't been possible for a lot of my life. That's why I'm laughing. At any rate, I have found this to be true. When I was treating children exclusively for the Department of Mental Health, I would go to individual educational plan meetings as an advocate for my patients. And the schools would try all sorts of railroading. This is because the schools up in the Antelope Valley in those days long ago were very new. And they didn't know what they were doing. So everything was hostility. They didn't talk to you. They just aggressed in return. No, you're attacking us. No, we're not going to do anything you want. So I got pretty good at this. And one of the things I learned to say was exactly this. I'm going to take this to arbitration. And then I got even smarter. I started carrying a copy of the California Health, Education, and Welfare Codes under my arm, and they could see that I had highlighted the relevant passages. And so I got very good at saying, you are cheating my patient, and I'm going to take this to arbitration. And here's what I'm going to read the judge. And I would read the law out, and they would turn white to the gills, and they would usually give me what I wanted. And I can't tell you, I've been called all sorts of hideous names like, you're not nice, and you're just interfering with our school district. You're ruining the rights of the other innocent children. Oh, what I've been accused of. Curiously, what I was never accused of is you're breaking the law, doctor. And the reason I wasn't was I was citing the law. And the law was put into place by us, by all of us, including the people in the hearing who were opposing my patient's rights. And my experience in arbitration was great. If you walk in and you do that, if you can cite the law, any judge wants to hear you. And when I have testified in court, same thing. I always come in with a firm grasp of this is what you're playing with and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I have to tell you, I thought this was wonderful. And if you are following me on Instagram, you'll be able to see that I stuck it in my stories. But even so, I want you to hear this, that if you are refused any type of coverage for care, you basically say, I want to go to a fair hearing trial. Don't waste your time on an appeal. If they say, well, you have to do the appeal first, read their fine print. That's usually not true. So that interrupted what I was going to say this week, and I'm going to say it anyway because our future vice president pointed out this week that he wants to restrict women from being able to cross state lines freely. I didn't make this stuff up, guys. So this reminds me to remind you that you have to be very careful talking online about any kind of health related to reproduction especially, or to anything that you consider oriented to the female body. Okay? And I'm trying to say this to cover everybody, and I apologize if it doesn't quite cover everybody, but please try to be sympathetic. I'm working hard here on the language. Because what I want to get to is use an anonymous browser. So sure, you can use Chrome or whatever you're using to browse the internet. But if you are looking for information around reproductive rights, or if you're communicating information to a website concerning reproductive rights, you want to be on an anonymous browser. The one recommended by the group I'm following called Feminist on Instagram is the Tor browser, and I give you a link to it in the show notes. This is T as in Thomas O-R. And again, this is all encrypted so that you can't get followed as you search the internet. Frankly, I'm wondering why I'm using any other browser right now for whatever I look for. But if you're looking up any kind of sensitive information, and you could extend this, anything about medication, anything about healthcare, anything, please consider using an anonymous browser. You can read the blurb there that I downloaded from online, and you can link to the Tor browser, which is an anonymous one. Oh, shoot. Well, I decided that my knee was killing me after doing the 100K last month. So I ran on Tuesday. And I ran okay, but I was hurting a lot. And I said, look, I really have to rest this. So I took a lot of time off. I didn't run again till today, Sunday, December 8th. And I was okay. But I realized as I was looking at the runs, I can't just go out there and hammer out 30 minutes of continuous running. And then I had this sort of apotheosis, and I went to all my running apps. There's quite a few of them. I think I'm using 5 of them now. They're all different running plans to get you to 5 and 10K. I set them all at 0 except one. My original 5K I'd set back at 0 a few weeks ago. So I left that one alone. But all the others, which are 10K plans, I set back to their first day. Now this is pretty boring. I was running one of them today, and it was horrifying. It was walk 5 minutes, run 30 seconds. I thought, really? This really started this slowly? Well, you know what I did. I reversed it. So I would run for 5 minutes and walk for 30 seconds. And a few times I didn't. A few times I just kept running. And it felt really good. And it was just this very relaxed run. And I became aware that I was very tense and I was getting very depressed in the days that I didn't run. It was really getting to me. And I had a good reminder of why I was happy biking this time last year. Even for, I think at this point, I would have been at 20 minutes a day. And I really can see why, because I am a much better human when I am exercising. So I basically have reset all my apps. And part of that was acknowledging I am not working my way up to a 10K, and I am not working my way up to a half marathon. Now, I've seen plenty of people older than me who can do those distances. But it's pretty obvious to me that my right knee isn't going to take that. And maybe it will if I just keep going at the same distance. If I stay at about the 5K mark, 3 miles is pretty good, guys. And if I just stay at that and just learn to relax and also to increase my speed, because I would like to do that. I'm running a pretty slow 5K. I had a very funny experience today, though. I was running on up hills and broken asphalt and trail and broken road surfaces. And then I got onto the asphalt surface. And because it was mid-afternoon on a Sunday, there was nobody out there driving, which was nice. I didn't feel endangered, although I was wearing my webcam. And I was out there, and I was thinking, Lordy, I'm so slow after all these days off. Then I got onto asphalt, and I heard whappity, 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 whappity. I thought, wow, somebody's going fast. And then I realized it was me. That the one advantage of that 100-kilometer thing I did last month was I began to run faster because I was running so much. That if you run every day, you will eventually start increasing your speed because you get a little bored. And so I was really sort of shocked to find out, yes, when I was on the broken trail, I was doing 20-minute miles. That does include a lot of walking, though. When I got on the asphalt, it went 17-minute miles. That it really was impressive how much faster I was going on the asphalt surface, and that I'd gotten used to that. So that was really great. Upcoming, the next race up is the Jingle Jog. I did finally find what may be the course map. This is being organized by the High Desert Runners up in the Antelope Valley, and it's up in Marie Kerr Park. And Marie Kerr does not strike me as a park you want to run in any particular way. It's pretty small. So I realized they had a race up because they have a sort of strange race they call the Nutter's Cutter or something. And I'm not even going to try to describe that, but their course for that basically indicates that twice around the perimeter of the park is a 5K. So I'm going to go out and try running that, I hope, sometime soon before the actual Jingle Jog on the 21st. If you go into the show notes, you will see the other upcoming races. On to the fluffy books. I am plowing very slowly through Death on the Tiber, the Flavia Albia book by Lindsay Davis. I'm enjoying it, but to be honest, I got sucked into a Georgette Heyer book called The Grand Sophie, which I'd read many, many years ago, like 40 years ago. And I remembered it fondly, and I started reading it, and it's such a delight. So I have to admit that it's not in the show notes, but I read The Grand Sophie this week. In my nighttime listening, I've moved on to Georgette Heyer's book, The Unknown Ajax. I'm really enjoying this one. This one is an experiment in very, very slow revelation of character. And she presents the title character, and she makes you play the role of the family who's welcoming him, so to speak, into their fold, and they're kind of hostile to him because he's half their family and half commoner blood, and they're snobs. And you are unwittingly pushed into the position of playing one of those family members as you begin to figure out who this guy is. And it's really a very charming character. Heyer is famous for strong leading men. She likes to portray the male lead as very strong, very self-controlled, very in charge. There are some interesting exceptions, like the male lead in The Grand Sophie. She has two basic male characters, she once said. One is that character, and the other is the guy who's just a useless fop. And that's it. You know, her character range goes from A to B, to be honest. But she gets a lot of mileage out of them. And so, of course, the unknown Ajax is being played to be a dope. And you begin to realize, as time goes on, that he's got this relentless, remarkable self-control and discipline. And if you listen to what he says, you realize that has to be true. And he does not hide what he is. He says from the beginning things he's been through in his life that are just remarkable and mark him as resilient and self-controlled. And yet, because he's kind of big and bovine looking, the adoptive family treat him like he's a moron. And they keep insulting him and everything else. It's just a lot of fun in a very subtle way. I have to admit, Heyer plays out just about every possible plot line you can get out of a limited range of characters, let me tell you. Okay, something I really like. Well, last week, as I think I may have mentioned on episode 211, I ended up trapped in the Apple store on, I can't remember, was it Friday or Saturday? I think it was Friday. And I was trapped there. It's always deadly. And I found the earphones of my dreams. These are wireless. They have a microphone, a good microphone, and good reception. These are called the Beats earphones. Now, Beats have these big ear covering headsets. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a thin little wire with one little earphone on each end. And that's it. And these things are wireless, so I can stop knocking all my tablets off the table every time I twist in my chair while talking to a patient. However, they're not cheap. These were, I think, $67. And I thought, I'm going to hate myself in the morning, but I bought a set. Okay, these are worth it. I have to say, these earphones have just changed my homework environment. That having these things on the charger, they charge super quick. The reception is superb. They're very powerful at transmitting their Bluetooth signal. When I turn these on, every computer in the room picks them up and displays an adorable little animation of them to let me know. So to save a lot of time, I turn everything off except the tablet I'm talking to my patient on, and then connect the Beats. I got them in this beautiful blue that you can see in the picture. I have a link in the show notes. I have to say, if you're in a job like mine, where you really need to have good quality sound and a good quality mic, the wireless advantage can't be understated because I'm always pulling things off my table. I have charger wires everywhere. As I sit here set up for tomorrow, I have 3 iPads, one's a mini, and I've got my remarkable tablet, and I've got a PC, and I've got my phone. I mean, I spend my day hooked up to a lot of tech to get through all the meetings I do. And so there's a lot of charging going on. I've got a nest of chargers at my knees here, sitting on top of my yarn bins. I've got batteries everywhere, headphones everywhere. It's really complicated trying to get a system that works for me. And these things are magnificent, so hoping that they last forever, that would be my one concern. But I have to say, I am deeply, deeply appreciative of the Beats earphones. I think on the website for Apple, they call them Dr. Dre's Beats or something like that. I don't care what they call them. These things are fantastic. And if you're using earphones for privacy and a microphone the way I am for 6 hours a day because other things are happening in your household, this is a must-have. These things are super, and I haven't found anything like them on Amazon or anywhere else. Put a lid on it. Well, we're back in the tea tastings from the beautiful kit from Plum Deluxe. You can see a picture of the box that it comes in for the Advent calendar. And day 2 and day 3, I have them in reverse order in the show notes. Let me start with day 2. Day 2 was a real unexpected pleasure. This one was the Snowman's Treat Herbal, and it was green rooibos, red rooibos, coconut flakes, orange peel, blue corn flour, and coconut and almond essence. Remember, I'm in the herbal Advent calendar here. I really thought, what a big nothing. Smelled nice, smelled like coconut, that was good. No, this is actually a delightful tea. I can't recommend it enough. The scent was delightful, hot. The flavor was complex. There was certainly a strong coconut overtone. I really think in the end you were tasting mostly the coconut and almond essences, to be completely honest. But it's a nice firm tea, and the scent and the taste were delightful. I did not drink it with any sweetener, and it was just fine that way. As you can see, it's a pretty color. It's a fine grind, so make sure you got a strainer that it won't slip through. But I really can't say enough good things about the Snowman's Treat Herbal. So then on day 3, I got to the Caramel Snickerdoodle Herbal, and this was one from last year, if I remember correctly. This was green rooibos, and then it just says rooibos, okay. Cinnamon pieces, blackberry leaf, I believe that's safflower, it's hard to read a little bit, orange blossom, and vanilla essence. This is just pleasant. It's just a really nice tea. Overall, I guess I would have to call it a caramel flavor. The vanilla came through very strongly. The orange blossom is there faintly. This was pleasant. This wasn't as good as the Snowman's on day 2, but I think you have to be a fan of the caramel snickerdoodle type of flavor. That's not high on my list. I did not drink it with sugar. It did not need it, thanks to the generous amount of cinnamon pieces in it. And it's just a pleasant tea. This is a nice sort of afternoon tea, I would say. And it doesn't make you stand up and take notice. It's just a very pleasant hot cuppa. Day 4, they had a beautiful blend, which I'm not going to mention because it had eucalyptus leaves in it, and I'm deathly allergic to them. But the tea tasting, so far so good. One of you lovely people, and I can't remember who, had said she got the kit based on my reports last year, and she's loving it. I'm totally with her. As I record this, I think I'm up through day 6. I'm just a little behind. It's not like I couldn't drink the other ones. And they've been really, really winners. This year's kit, right on. Really nice. Nothing plain or forgettable so far. Just very, very good job, Plum Deluxe. Goodness, that brings us to the blather. Well, as I told you a few weeks ago, you should renew your passport. And if you want anything else like TSA or global entry, you should be doing that now. Because with the next administration, God knows what they're going to tear apart. Because the ideas that they're floating in the Republican Party to cut funding on is just truly disturbing. So please get all that stuff done. Please get all your legal stuff. Make sure your passport has years to go on it. Make sure that's all clear now. So I made an appointment to go get TSA. I thought, sure, why not? It's not that expensive, and you don't have to take your shoes off, that sort of thing. Get in the shorter line. And I went to their TSA center, the Telos Center, at the Office Depot. They made an appointment, and they didn't show up. So I wasn't pleased with that. So I went home. Now, I used to have global entry, and it expired in 2020. And I went home and looked at that and said, I should do that. Global entry is a little more comprehensive than TSA. TSA is only domestic. Global entry is very nice to have. You really do get short lines. Again, not every airport, not every airline does TSA and global entry. Global entry takes 4 to 6 months, whereas TSA, they say, is considerably shorter. I don't remember the time on that. Well, anyway, I looked at all that and I said, well, once you hand in your passport, I don't think you can apply for these things. They want to see your passport, and you're not supposed to use your passport once you're in the renewal process. So I said, I'm just going to put TSA and global entry aside and go for renewing my passport. Now, I've never done it online, but I can. So I did. There's a lot of requirements you have to meet, but I met them because I have a still live passport. It doesn't expire until February. So I did the online passport thing. This led to me needing a passport picture, a digital one. So I went over, and to my surprise, Walgreens does passport pictures. Very easy. They all have just a little screen. They roll it down. You stand in front of it. So I got really good customer service. I want to thank them for that. It was very pleasant. The first one didn't come out well. I went back and said, no, I don't like this. And they were really easy and friendly about just refunding my money and taking a new one. So, I sat down and did the online passport renewal. And so far, so good. I did it all today. In case you're wondering, for an adult who's renewing, who's had one before, it costs $130. And you can pay an extra $20 to have them expedite the mailing after they finish it. To actually have the whole passport process expedited, you have to go in person and pay a hefty fee. But normally they say 4 to 6 weeks, and then they will expedite the mailing to you. That didn't seem worth it to me. So I think in the end I paid $130 for it. And it was very easy to do. The thing was, looking up all of this is a little crazy making. So please think about this and think about whether you want TSA and or global entry, and think about doing it slowly, because it is going to make you a little crazy. It's going places and finding out the person who does the photos isn't there, or going in and finding out the TSA agent just didn't show up. Things like that are very unnerving. So all I can tell you is just be prepared for the lots of little gritty details and just take your time. Okay? Meanwhile, nothing much else has been going on this week. It's been very quiet around here, I'm happy to say. You can see in the show notes the community resources that my library and such. I want to point out, too, when I talk about my library, I went on to Anna's Archives because today I was looking at my library of knitting books and realizing most of them are out of print. And they're always being replaced. There's always new designers and people rediscovering the wheel, frankly. So I looked at them all on my shelf, and I went to Anna's Archives and I said, do these exist in PDF or EPUB, that is the Amazon Kindle format? And many of them do. And so I went to Anna's Archive and said, I've already bought these in hard copy, so I just downloaded them. And I have to do a bit of sorting and arranging, but I did load them onto one of my 4 terabyte removable hard drives. And I'm really happy about that. I have to say, I'm very pleased with it, because it means that when we downsize and relocate, I don't need to have all the books, which makes me feel sad as a former college professor to say that. But it's going to make me feel happy when I don't have to pay to move them state to state on a big expensive moving van. So, I don't feel real good about pirating books from people whose books are in print and need this to make money. They're making a living as designers. But when you talk about old books, and I think most of these designers have passed on, frankly, I feel pretty good about this. So that's what I'm using Anna's Archives for. And, do with that what you will. At any rate, you can see in the community resources list links to the books I've used, to my favorite resources for buying equipment for knitting, and also links to all the skills and techniques that I've liked. You can also see a link to my link tree, which is really just going to take you to the races I'm running and to the ways you can buy me a coffee and all that stuff. There's the calendar underneath that you've seen before. It's all of the local knitting groups in the Santa Clarita Valley. I should say knitting and crocheting, and any other craft you want, frankly, as well as the Santa Clarita Valley Free Craft Exchange, something I can't recommend highly enough. Meanwhile, there's my calendar, and you can see I'm hanging on for December 21st and Romule. It's coming. So I just have 2 more weeks of patience, not like I'm counting. And you can see my race schedule underneath it. I have the Jingle Jog on December 21st, right on the solstice for good luck. And then I have nothing till the Cupid Dash in February, so I'm still on the lookout for that elusive January race. Really, it's hard to get winter races. I have to say the racing schedule is in the autumn and the spring, so you can see my problem there. CFR 11 is still tentatively on October 11th, 2025. We're just in that quiet time of the planning, which is happy. Hopefully over the Christmas break, one of the things I need to do is start organizing notes and an information link for CFR 11. Minerva gets the last word. You can see her there. She is stropping her claws on the arm of the command chair that I'm sitting in even as I record this. And her last word is, I am ripping at your chair for a reason. I am communicating with you. Sometimes it's important to realize that other creatures are destructive while they try to communicate with us. They are doing that because they know that certainly gets our attention. This has been one of the challenges, certainly, of training Queenie, that she would come in the house and jump all over the furniture and run wildly around. And it took us a while to realize she's just telling us she wants attention and love and she's excited to be with us. And we had to work for several months to redirect that into fussing over her and immediately loving and hugging her to keep her from jumping on things. And that's Minerva's system too, that Minerva strops her claws when she wants my attention. Sometimes she'll do it when she's angry with me, but the important thing is to realize destructive behavior in another being is not always that being angry. Sometimes they don't know what to do and they're trying to get your attention. I'm not sure why I'm saying that, except it seems politically real right now that if you have loved ones and they're politically goofy, you may want to consider that they don't know what else to do and they're trying to get your attention. That somehow through the next 4 years we have to hold on to our sanity and try to protect our system. And yeah, South Korea and Syria. Yeah, pretty amazing stuff going on. In Syria I'm not up to speed on, but wow, South Koreans, I can only stand up and salute you. That's amazing. But sometimes you have to realize people are trying to tear things apart because the system isn't working for them. It's tragic when you feel as though you've been trying to show them what will work for them and they still just want to burn everything to the ground. However, sometimes you need to remember that's a form of communication too. So Minerva is desperately commenting, I guess, on the American political system right now. Sure, why not? A cat's got to be as valid as some of the other stuff. In the meantime, remember, the reason we have these situations is, even though we're trying here in America to be crazy and individualistic, we're actually a community. And that means when we work for the good of everyone in the community, we benefit on an individual level. So please remember the communal good is also the individual good. And on that happy note, everybody, please stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.